There is more perspective in terms of what, of course, is likely to happen at this moment. We're being joined in by Mr. Edward P. Joseph, who is a political analyst and also a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. He's joining us live from New York. Now, Mr. Joseph, this is a critical moment in this conflict. We see that nearly about 360,000 soldiers and reservists have been mobilized by the state of Israel at this moment. We do not know as to when the ground incursion will happen, but it is expected to happen pretty soon. How long drawn do you think this ground incursion could actually be?
That's something that I cannot answer. I know a few people who could answer that question, but what I can answer is how we see the strategy of Hamas playing out, and we see it playing out here in your report, because your report barely mentioned the fact that Hamas launched this war. Let's repeat that for your viewers. Hamas started this war with a deliberate, brutal attack, barbaric attack, really, that has taken the lives of 1,200 Israelis, including over 250 young people at a concert. There have been reports of women being paraded around who had been raped, babies being shot. These are startling, horrifying atrocities that have shaken the conscience of all, not just the Western world, but all civilized people, all people who are concerned about civilian casualties. So we really need to put that into mind here. And we really need to understand that if our concern, as it should be, is not just with Israeli civilians, but also with Palestinian civilians, then our reporting, including this, has to be focused on Hamas and its strategy. And its strategy is exactly as your report explained. It was to deliberately, barbarically attack the Israelis to produce a counter-reaction. So you have to ask the question, Mohammed. This is the question you should be asking.
That's absolutely correct, Mr. Joseph. In the course of the last 7 days, Mr. Joseph, if I can just interject there, in the course of the last 8 days that we've been covering this conflict, we've been talking about what Hamas has done. We've said that it is reprehensible. As you pointed out, that any person who is civilized is not going to condone what Hamas has done. That is absolutely true. No one supports it. No civilized person in the right frame of mind would support it. But also what is happening at this moment is a humanitarian catastrophe that is playing out in the Gaza Strip. There are 2.3 million people for whom food, water, electricity and power has been cut off from. There are hospitals where power has run out. We're talking about a catastrophe that we've not witnessed in a very long time. And it is important that nations which are in positions of power deal with this responsibly. Now, the question that I would want to ask you is, the United States of America, let me just complete my question here. The United States of America, which is the nation that has the largest amount of leverage with the state of Israel at this moment, do you think the United States is doing the right thing? It is important to go after Hamas, but it's also important to ensure that there is no collateral damage.
Let me respond to that, Mohammed. The United States, President Biden is our elected leader, president of the United States, and he has stated very clearly that Israel is required to abide by international law, and it is. The question here is twofold: is what is international law when applied to a place like Gaza under the rule of Hamas? And Mohammed, we have to ask: is Hamas abiding by international law? Or is the deliberate strategy of Hamas, an organization, you have to ask yourself, this, Mohammed, if they would kill Israeli babies, do they really care? Does Hamas care about Palestinian civilians? If they will kill babies, young people at a concert, do they really care? Or do they want deliberately to mount the Israeli, the Palestinian suffering? Now, let's turn to this. President Biden stated, and he is absolutely right, that Israel has to abide by international law. Now, international law, you're guided by the question of proportionality. The thing is, you can turn to experts. There's an expert even at Columbia University who says very clearly that the question of proportionality can be debated because it depends on the value of the military target. Now, sieges, this is very problematic, but ask yourself, Mohammed, you say it's so terrible to ask the civilians to move. They're not, this isn't Nakba. Why do you invoke inflammatory term?
This is not me invoking it. Mr. Joseph, let me just interject there. This is not me invoking it. This is what I'll let you finish, but I think you're making an important point there, Mr. Joseph. Let me just
important point, but you won't let me finish.
Now, the people who are saying that this is reminiscent of a Nakba is not me. I'm sitting here in the studio. What I'm saying is people in the Gaza Strip. People in the Gaza Strip are saying that this is reminiscent of what their grandparents, in fact, went through.
We're not going to achieve our goal of trying to minimize the suffering of innocent civilians if we distort and simply reflect Hamas claims, which is part of its strategy to heighten Palestinian suffering. The worse, the better for Hamas. I repeat, the worse, the better. The worse the situation for Palestinian civilians, the better it is for Hamas and its strategy. And we won't get there if we just simply parrot things about Nakba. The border is closed. Palestinians cannot go into Egypt. President Sisi has made it that clear. So where's the Nakba? The aim is to minimize civilian casualties by moving them out of the threat, the area where there's a threat. Now, the other thing is you said this high number of Israeli ground forces. Ground forces, I don't know why you would be concerned about that. The greater the number of ground forces, the lower the number of airstrikes. Ground forces minimize civilian casualties, but of course they have to accept civilian casualties. Israelis have to accept higher Israeli civilian or military casualties, but there would be lower Palestinian casualties when you use ground forces as opposed to aerial bombardment.
You've made their point there, Mr. Joseph. We are completely running out of time.
Let's not play into Hamas's goal of increasing
very quickly,
Palestinian
last 20
casualties.
seconds.
Thank you. Please.
All right. I think you've made your point, but I just want to reiterate what Anthony Blinken, the American Secretary of State, told the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu when he said that it is important for democracies to hold themselves to a higher standard than to these non-state militant factions in the way in which they conduct themselves. I think that's an important point that we can all agree upon. Thank you very much.
I agree.
Mr. Edward P. Joseph, for joining us.
I agree on that.
Getting
Thank you.
Insights.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.